the heart and soul behind every business. Stories. Welcome to Business Story of the Week, hosted by me, Joshua Laurie. From setbacks to comebacks, from tragedies to triumphs, we inspire entrepreneurs through conversations that matter. Witness the magic that turns dreams into reality. Whether it's your career, business, or life, your success is always one story away. This is Business Story of the Week. And welcome back to Business Story of the Week. I am your host, Joshua. And today's question, ladies and gentlemen, how can a simple, active connection save a life? It's a very profound, important question. And today we have the perfect guest to answer that question with us, David Woods Bartley. In addition to giving two TED Talks, being named 2021 Mental Health Champion by the prestigious Steinberg Institute, and being recognized as a global thought leader, David has presented more than 800 times to audiences across the United States, Canada, Central America, Germany, Italy, Japan, Korea, and India, giving in person and virtual presentations on the subjects of suicide, resiliency, male sexual trauma, mental health, organizational culture, and servant leadership. Ladies and gentlemen, I am quite happy and excited to have David Woods here on us. He will be sharing his insight, his perspectives, and wisdom on the show. David, thank you for coming on the show. How are you doing?
Joshua, I'm doing great. I've been looking forward to this for a long time. So I was,
Wow.
I'm so excited that Monday is finally here. So
Wow.
thank you for having me on.
David, that feels great. You know that you look forward to sharing your story, and of course, it's great. It feels like an honor to have you on here. I am quite excited as well. Before we really get into it, though, David, I mean, as always the start, right? We love, even if we talk about business on the show, literally the second name of the show is story. So we
Mhm.
love touching up on stories, and we're going to touch up on a lot of stories today. But first of all, can you tell us a bit of an origin story, David? Before the real turn, and before the pivotal moments of your life that led you into mental health advocacy, what what were the did you always know you were going to be a speaker? Did you always have that kind of talent in you? And do you always have this kind of servant leadership cause deep down inside of you? What is the origin story of David Woods Bartley?
I love the question. Thank you so much. So, I am a product of people, product
Mm,
of the people in my life. And that
mm,
includes my parents, includes my brothers, includes my former wife, who's still a
mm,
very dear friend of mine, and includes my
mm,
fiance, it includes my the clinicians and the other people who have helped me from a mental health standpoint.
mm.
But I think the thing that really was the most defining moment in terms of you know, servant leadership is when I was married to a wonderful woman named Deanna.
Mhm.
And Joshua, we had an animal sanctuary. And the
Oh,
animal sanctuary was called A Chance for Bliss. And it was named after the
chance for
Boston,
bliss. Wow.
very first two dogs. We had two Boston Terriers named Chance and Bliss. And Joshua, at one point, the sanctuary had 100 animals.
Oh
We
my.
we had
Wow.
25 horses. We
Wow.
had 23 dogs that lived in the house. We
Mhm.
had 9 potbelly pigs. We had goats and sheep and ducks and geese and bunnies and birds and turtles and fish. We had this incredible, like Noah was a rookie in his little
Wow.
ark compared to what we were doing. And and Deanna has this still to this day has this incredible heart, Joshua. And so our main, really what we did, and this was where the servant leadership, that's the origin story of David Bartley, was we were end of life. So we really were a hospice, the
Oh my.
final stop for all these different animals. So we did no adoptions, and they came. And I'll tell you, Joshua, it is that molded me
Mhm.
in a way that I didn't think was possible.
Wow.
And I use in the work that I do now in talking about mental health
Mhm.
and the more challenging aspects of my story is many of the stories that I use are stories of animals from the
Right.
sanctuary,
Mhm.
but they are told in a way that has a relevancy to this conversation around mental health. But that time, Joshua, you would have loved the sanctuary.
Oh my goodness. Well, I mean, I I wouldn't be alone, in, especially in that story of wanting to see that animal sanctuary, especially the way you talk about it. And I could feel the I could feel the love for it, the passion for it. But more than that, I feel how much it shaped you and how much you're saying that it helped you in your life. I understand that one of your TED talks, in in Folsom, you talk about how to save a life by sitting down. You talk about animals. You talk about using animals to sort of kind of recover. And this talk is part of your. I believe, like you said, like animals is always part of how you talk about it in context. Talk to us a little bit about this TEDx talk that you did in Folsom. How to save a life by
So,
sitting down, and how do you
so
use animals in that context?
and thank you for I love this story. So this is a
Oh,
story about
please.
Murphy. So
Okay.
Murphy was a Boston Terrier. So for those who don't know what a Boston Terrier is, Boston Terriers are they're like small versions of English bulldogs, and they're spunky and feisty, and they fart
Mhm.
a lot. Just I've had like 30. So anyway,
Wow.
Murphy had a condition, Joshua, called megaesophagus. So in other words, his esophagus was enlarged. So when a dog has megaesophagus,
Mhm.
they will starve to death. And the reason is because when if an esophagus is enlarged, it won't contract. And the job
Mhm.
of the esophagus is to contract and move food literally from the mouth
Mhm.
down through the throat into the stomach. So
Mhm.
Murphy, standing on all fours, would
Mhm.
eat, and some food would get down, but because the esophagus wouldn't contract, ultimately what would happen is the food would come back up, and he didn't throw up, he
Mhm.
regurgitated. And there's a difference which
Oh
I
my
didn't
goodness.
know. So I
Right.
thought when he came, I thought, well, gosh, there's nothing we could do. But
Mhm.
Deanna, no, 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 not Mama with a big heart. She
Oh.
came up with this way, and here's what she did.
Mhm.
So she would watch Murphy eat. And Dean
Okay.
knew when Murphy had eaten just enough, but not too much. And at that critical moment, Joshua would scoop Murphy up, prop him up. And when I saw that, I knew it was my job was to go take a seat.
Mm.
And I go in my favorite comfy chair and sit there on the edge, right on the
Beautiful.
edge, what we all
Oh
do.
wow.
And Dee
Wow.
would come over and
Wow.
give Murphy to me.
Mhm.
I would take him, keep him propped up, pull him in tight against my chest, right next to my
Wow.
heart,
Mhm.
and then sit back in the chair. And we'd sit there for 30 minutes and allow life to do the work of a malfunctioning esophagus because
Wow.
gravity pulled the food down.
Mhm.
And after
Mhm.
30 minutes, when it was all done,
Mhm.
put him down and Murph would go do his thing. And
Wow.
so the correlation to life, not just mental health, not just suicide, is
Mhm.
what's the power
Mhm.
if we just sit down with
Wow.
somebody? Just be with them. And we know what it's like when
Mhm.
someone is just with us. Like we know what
Mhm.
that's like. It's
Mhm.
extraordinary. And there's a quote that I'll share with you that is from an amazing man, Dr. Drew Ramsey, who's a psychiatrist and an associate clinical professor at Columbia and an author. And here's what he says. And Joshua, this every time I say this quote, it reminds me of the problem, but of the fact that prevention is doable. And here's what he says.
Right. Right.
Someone you see today is thinking about killing themselves. Your
Mhm.
smile, your question, your love could save them.
Wow.
Trust me, they told me it did.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. What a quote.
Isn't that, it is, Joshua, like, isn't that like unbelievable? It's like
Mhm. Mhm.
because you can just see that patient sitting with Dr. Ramsey, and Dr.
Mhm.
Ramsey hears the patient saying, yeah, I had this interaction. Somebody smiled at me. Somebody asked me how I was doing. Somebody
Oh,
gave me this expression of love. That's why
mhm,
I'm still here. So, like, we can every day we have this opportunity
mhm,
to
mhm,
sit down, save a life by sitting down. Like
mhm,
Murphy and I sat down for countless times.
mhm.
And we can do the same sort of thing in our everyday life and in simple ways of interacting with our
Wow.
brothers and sisters out there.
The simple acts of kindness means
Yes.
the world to people, especially to people who are struggling internally, people who feel like they're hopeless, people who feel like, and we don't know. These things sometimes are not visible, of course, but
Right.
the very thing that we can control is to simply be kind and have that those small moments of connection, so to speak, right? David, I understand that this is also your other TED Talk, which is what you called "How Connection Saved My Life," and you often speak about suicide awareness, of course, and prevention, because um, individuals can take, especially when we talk about individuals who are looking to support someone else who might be struggling with suicidal thoughts. These talks are very important. But David, in your talk, you talk a lot about the monster
Mhm.
and your own personal experience. David, walk us through this experience, walk us through this talk, and how did connection save your life?
So, Joshua, unfortunately, this will be very honest, I was
Mhm.
raped at 12 years old by a Boy Scout leader. And I was told every time he did this, he said, these are initiations and all the boys go through it, but we don't talk about it. So I mention that because it's important to mention it. And that was really the beginning of my experience with horrific depression. And ultimately, living with it, you made a very good point. What I believe is sometimes what hurts the most can't be seen. I was a really good actor. And, and ultimately on August 31st, 2011, I couldn't do it anymore. And so I made my way. I live outside of Sacramento, and I made my way to what's known as the Forest Hill Bridge. Now, the Forest Hill Bridge, at 730 feet tall, is 500 feet further off the ground than its more famous cousin in San Francisco, the Golden Gate Bridge. And so ultimately, I made my way to the midpoint of the bridge and bent over. But that bridge has an infamous reputation. Somebody called 911, and a sheriff's deputy approached me, and he didn't make contact with me, Joshua. He
Mhm.
made connection with
Wow.
me. And there's a
Mhm.
huge difference because ultimately, in what I share, is that connection creates hope,
Mhm.
and hope saves lives.
Wow.
And I was taken off the bridge to an emergency room and then spent 15 days in a psychiatric facility, and it changed my life.
Wow.
It began this journey to understand this thing. What is this thing called depression, this monster that I had lived with for so long?
Mhm.
And in the moment that I was going to kill myself, what I believed to be true was that I was worthless and useless and
Mhm.
stupid and terrible and ugly and grotesque. And most damning was that I believed that the world would be better off without me. And
Wow.
unfortunately, what I believed then, 13 years ago, is very common for those who are suffering today. And nothing could be further from the truth. But there's a great
Yes.
chef,
Yes.
David Chang. And David Chang has suffered from his own bouts with depression. And he has this quote that says, when you're depressed, you're convinced that everything you think is true. And you're just like, and that's that in Joshua, that's that space.
Yeah. That is.
And it has taken me, and I continue to work on it these 13 years to go. I like to say I'm journeying from mental illness
Mhm.
to mental wellness. And it has been a whole army of people who have supported me. This
Wow.
my beloved, my former wife. I have an incredible family,
Mhm.
physicians and psychiatrists and nurses and support groups and all these different people, and it continues. I shared with
Wow.
people that it's something I have to stay on top of, very much so.
Wow. First of all, David, thank you for your bravery. Thank you for what you have had to overcome yourself in order to get yourself to the point of sharing this message, because we all need that bravery, because when people see that courage in others, it also gives them the courage to tell their own stories. And again, that's what we do. We want to tell these stories so others can tell theirs, and that's what I try to do as well with my platform, is to have those stories be told in a profound manner, and in a free way, in a very meaningful way as well. David, of course, I love that also what you said, from mental healthness to mental wellness. I love that. I have never heard of that. I am going to steal that, David.
Please,
But
it is
Dave,
yours, my brother.
yeah, fantastic. I mean, like, David, you talked to us about how you attempted, and how the sheriff
Mhm.
connected with you. David,
Yeah.
what was it that he did particularly in order to just connect with that? What was that particular thing or the moment where you felt that he connected, that saved your life? Because this might also help us save others' lives as well. how
Yeah.
how how would we do it? How should it be done?
Thank you for the question. And first, I want to give the definition of connection, because it's very specific, and it's the great Brene Brown. So, if you want to see a
Oh,
great TED talk, go watch it.
yes.
So, here's what
Yeah.
Dr. Brown says, and this is connection.
Hmm.
She says, I define connection as the energy that exists between people when they feel seen, heard, and valued, when they
Beautiful.
can give and receive without judgment, and they derive strength and sustenance from the relationship.
Oh, beautiful.
Oh, yes.
Beautiful.
So, how can you not experience hope when
Hmm.
you have that experience of connection? And so
Yes.
I don't remember the initial parts, but here's the first thing I remember with the sheriff. And you know the question, Joshua, that he asked me? It's a question that you wouldn't think, especially in that space. This would be like, don't talk about this. The question was, David, please share with me, what does it feel like to be depressed?
Mm.
That's what he asked me in that space. You would think, well,
Wow.
wait, you don't want to talk about that, but no. But see, the problem is, people who are in the place of suicide, there's a story that we have that,
Okay.
and oftentimes, for whatever the reason, we haven't told this story.
Oh,
And
yeah.
and in the fact that we haven't told the story, to carry the weight of an untold story, that can
That's,
kill you. And
that is
and,
true.
and that question, and I remember being shocked by the question. And I shared, and he listened, and and you know what he did?
Hmm.
You
Hmm.
know what that amazing man did? He said, "Thank you for telling me how you feel." Like, he validated the
Hmm.
experience. Like, you wouldn't think, like, well, here's a police officer in this situation. Like, let me
Wow.
ask this guy how he feels, and then
Mm.
let me thank him for telling me.
Mhm.
And that was the exchange, because I felt, you know what? Seen, heard, valued,
There you
right
go.
there.
Hmm.
Just that. So remember, your smile, your question, your love could save them. Trust me, they told me it did. Those things I keep going back to, because I want to make prevention doable. I don't want it to be this huge thing. They're like, oh no, there's nothing I can do. Yes, there is.
There is.
You
There
can ask somebody
absolutely
how they
is.
feel.
Hmm. Hmm.
Like, and it's what you do, brother, with this platform. My God,
Hmm.
the lives of your 200,000 downloads.
Hmm.
That's can't even get my head around that. It's incredible.
Well, David, you are incredible as well in what you do. And shout out to the sheriff, of course, who saved David. and just the many other people who are connecting out there and saving their lives, saving other people's lives by allowing them to be seen, allowing them to be heard, allowing them to be valued. It really is that. It's so simple, right, David?
Mm.
It's just because we cannot tell our stories. It's such a heavy burden to not be able to tell that. And if we hide it, we keep it in ourselves, that is definitely fatal. And we all know the feeling all too well. You break down, and you just get into this rut, into this spiral, into this void. And for many people, for others as well, it turns, they attempt, this turns into an attempt to end their own lives.
Yeah.
And David, thank you for teaching us that that simple connection really is what it takes to just all it takes to get people out of that rut, so to speak. Because we all just want to be heard. We all just want to know that we exist. We're here right now, and we're just, we're together. That's it.
You said it beautifully. You're
Mhm.
so right.
David, one of your message revolves around the idea that connection creates hope, and
Mm.
hope saves lives. And I feel like that's what we do when we smile, when we, like, acknowledge the existence of people. Those small acts gives hope. And when it comes to, individually, of course it starts individually, but at large or at scale, how can organizations and communities foster these kinds of environments where we're trying to promote, mental wellness over mental healthness? And how do you promote resilience in larger groups of people, so you can, you create hope and resilience? How can that be done with groups of people?
I think I'm gonna, I'm gonna tell you a story.
Oh, please,
So
please. We love
one of
stories. Let's go.
one of the one day we get a call from
Hmm.
an animal shelter. We were a
Yes.
sanctuary, not a shelter.
Yep. Hmm.
And what happened was, old man Joshua, about 90 years old, comes in with this old dog and says to the shelter worker, "Hi, I was out on my walk and I found this dog, which was a Basset Hound cross, and he
Okay.
doesn't have any identifying, tags or
Hmm.
anything. I thought I should bring him in." And the shelter worker's like, "Oh my gosh, thank you so much. That's so kind of you. Would you please just fill out some information for us? Give us your name, your telephone number, and where you found the dog. We'll
Hmm.
take him in the back. Chances are, I mean, we're going to check for a microchip, but they didn't microchip back in the day when he was around
Hmm.
because he's so old." So old man fills out the information. Shelter worker takes the dog in the back, scans the dog for a microchip, and Joshua comes back and says, "Oh my God, we're in luck. There's a microchip. We can find the owner." And then compares the information that the old man had written down and the information on the microchip, and it was the same. So, in other words, what what it appeared to be was that the old man lied and made up this story about the fact that he found this dog. Now, if I was there, I would have lost my mind. I would have just come unglued, but that person didn't do it. And Joshua, you know what that person did? Instead of getting angry, instead of asking a why question, what she did is ask a what question. And she looked at the old man and said, "Sir, what happened?" And at that point, the old man burst into tears. And when he could finally collect himself, he pointed to the dog and he said, "This is Joshua. I've had Joshua since he was 16, since he was just a baby, and he's 16 years old. There's nothing more important to me than my dog, but I'm dying. And tomorrow I'm going into a medical facility." And I begged and I pleaded and I offered to pay, but they wouldn't let me keep my dog. And I was afraid if I said that, told you the truth, that I couldn't keep him, that you would put him to sleep, and I know that he has more time to stay alive. And because that person asked that one question, asked what happened, you know what she said to the old man? She said, "Sir, there's a sanctuary down the hill and they take in old dogs. Maybe they have room for one more." And the only reason that Joshua got to live the last year of his life being loved and adored and cherished is because, think about it, Joshua, one person asked one question. So, in answer to your question, from a community standpoint, we need to admit that we don't know and that that is okay. And we need to make a commitment to take why questions and throw them away, to never ask another why question ever again, because why questions put you on the defensive. Change it to a what question. Because if communities then get into that space of asking what questions to allow people to truly reveal who they are, people will feel seen, heard, and valued. We will have societies of connection that just drip hope, and we will see less and less and less and less people get to that place of hopelessness because they feel hope filled. I'd say, Joshua, thank you for the question. I'd say if you are suffering, maybe like I have been and sometimes still do, please accept help. It's okay to not be okay. Please accept help. That there are ways. There are many different things that I have done over the years at the hands of extraordinary people that have allowed me to be at a point now at 61 years old, feeling better than I've ever felt in my life. But I couldn't do it alone. So please, whether you're a man or a woman, whether you're young or you're older, please don't try to walk this road alone. Please allow other people to make a contribution. Please accept the help that is available, and please make the request. Like, it, please do that. Thank you, Joshua. So my job is to present to organizations, to companies, to places. So I would love if you have an interest in me coming to present to your company, to give a very different version of mental health training. Not that others are bad. It's just different. Um, David at davidwoodsbartley.com is the email address. David Woods Bartley on the internet, you can find it. There's two TED Talks that I was incredibly blessed to give. Um, my telephone number is out there as well. Would love to be of service to the community. So any organization, schools in particular, I love working with to allow to speak to it. The military, I do a lot of work with the military. Any organization at all, church groups. Just talked at a church this past Sunday. I just want to get the message out, and it's really a message of that connection creates hope, and hope saves lives. But they're very tangible ways that we can do these various things to make a difference. No problem. Oh, I loved it. You're amazing. I mean, you have such a beautiful way. How would I describe Joshua? Just you're like a, I don't know if this will come across right. you're like Joshua, you're like an easy chair. You're so comfortable. It is just, I feel like you and I have known each other forever. It doesn't feel like this is the first time you and I've spoken. So that's all about you. So that takes a talent and an ability that's pretty magical. So thank you.
All right, so here's the thing. We try to get a little bit better every day, but we can't do it without you. So if you like the video, make sure to like and subscribe below. And if you have any comments, just leave them in the space under.